try my best to show what I'm doing here to replace these brackets. They just came in today with a set of 6 screws. I think 2 are just extras. My LCD, I'm able to move back a little bit. The brackets themselves, the front one goes in this way. There is a small LCD tab on the video. I'm not sure if that's going to show up or not, but you need to move that out of the way. I can get the front plate in without undoing any of the wiring. It simply goes in with the LCD out of the way, and then 2 of the screws are 2.5 millimeter. That there's a pre-threaded hole in the aluminum casing that holds the sorry, I'm trying to concentrate on getting this threaded, that holds the tank, and also that the screen protector is mounted on the other side. So I've got my machine tipped upside down currently. The holes that are in the bracket are oblong, giving you the ability to move this forward a little bit. The next one's going to be a little trickier. What I'm going to have to do is actually take this set of wires off of the power supply. I've numbered them on the squeeze nuts for the casings here, 1 through 9. I've also taken a picture of them to make sure I can get them back in order, just in case I really get screwed up with this. They're not tightened down too bad with the Phillips screwdriver. They come right off, just a 1/4 turn. Should be loose enough to be able to get that power supply disconnected from everything. Hoping the wires stay in pretty much their order they're in. Taking some of the guesswork out of reinstalling these. And of course, trying not to do any more damage to the LCD. I'm not really seeing a lot of damage on mine, but I haven't removed the whole thing either, so I just did a quick glance inside. I've seen others on Facebook here that are much worse. So the second bracket goes in much the same way. These 2 prongs are towards the board itself that holds the LCD and the power supply. These go down towards the aluminum bracket. I think with those removed, I should be able to move this forward just a little bit and tuck this in. Get the bracket down beneath the wires. It mounts around the motor, the Z-axis. There are holes already in place for it as well. I'm just trying to get it set in there and away from some of the other pieces that are in the way down below. I'd like to say this is a 2-person job, but I don't know that there's enough room in there for 2 people to really do this anyway. There we go. There's some wires connected on this side that are pretty hefty that you have to get out of the way. Now the 2 larger screws that they sent are 4 millimeter. And I think, as Jane said on one of her posts, it is a pretty long reach in there. So I would recommend getting the longest 4 millimeter hex you can get to get them started. So while I'm trying to do this, I will say that my brackets came in a little over a week to Ohio. They were shipped through DHL out of California, and then the post office sat on them for a few days before making their way to me here in Ohio. I'll do a little bit more finagling here to get this in there properly, I think. It's definitely a tight fit. It may have been easier, like Jane, to take the whole board out and disconnect everything. I was trying to save myself a few painful hours of putting everything back together by doing this. Don't know if that's worth it or not now, but we shall see. What I'm trying to do right now is just see if these little holes are lining up properly on the brackets. The one side lines up pretty well. I'm using the 4 original bolts that came out of the standoffs that they installed that failed miserably. Trying not to touch the LCD, but yet trying to get these threaded also. Not really sure this is a great fit now that I'm looking at this. These brackets don't seem to line up very well with the holes in the heatsink. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to have this mounted from below. That may be how it has to go. Alright, we got one thread in. It's threaded through the bracket very loosely, just to give me some wiggle room. Those are lining up a lot better now. So the brackets, in my case at least, are this piece with the heatsink are sitting on top of the brackets and then threaded down through the heatsink into the brackets. I don't really think the diagram they sent is that clear on how that goes. It looks like that should be the way they're bent. It should be holding it up, but this should work just the same. Again, I'm just loosely putting 2 of the 3 4mm hex heads that they sent in, just to give me some room to move this around and slide it back so I can get the other side of the bracket attached to the heatsink. Let's say you're threading these into aluminum, so you want to be careful not to cross thread them in any way. Which I kind of feel like I'm doing with this one. Definitely cross threading a little bit. Let's try another angle. Apologize for the long video on this, but yeah, it's much better. So that one has seated not only in the two here, but the two here are seated. I'm going to now attach the front bracket, moving it forward a little bit as well. On. Make sure it's seated. Now I've got all four seated, and I'm going to tighten them all down. And then I'll go back and tighten up the brackets. Go back and check the wiring to make sure everything's plugged back in properly. Last time. Try to visually line up. Actually lines up really well. I think it was very smart of them to put the oblong holes in the bracket themselves to give you some room to move back and forth with it to get it set. Would have been a lot easier if we didn't have to use 3 different size Allens, but that's neither here nor there. So going back to the 2.5 for the front. I'm sorry, not Allen, but hex head. And then the last and final one up front here. So I hope this may help somebody that's getting their brackets or hasn't installed theirs yet. I know we're all in this together at this point. And we all want a successful product at the end of the day, since we've invested so much. But I would say definitely numbering these has helped out as well. And wish me luck from this point forward, firing the machine up once I get the bottom reinstalled. Hopefully everything fires up just like it's supposed to.